Hello and welcome to our first class activity, installing Server 2022 in a virtual box. So if you are in my class, you should have this document somewhere. And so open it up because I'm going to ask you to do screenshots to prove that you have done the lab. And when you take the screenshots, you put them all the way at the bottom of your lab. Okay, I'll show you. I'll do this with you as we go along. All right, so just leave this lab document open, and I'm going to take you step by step on how to install the Server 2022 on the virtual box, in the virtual box. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is you need to install the virtual box. Go to virtualbox.org, click on download VirtualBox. This is the latest and the greatest that they have, 7.0. If you have a Windows-based, you click on the Windows host. If you have a Mac machine, you click on the Mac. So if you click on the Windows host, this is what I have. And you can open up or download it. It's best to download it. I save it and then I usually install it. All right, I already installed it. And the other thing that you need is the Windows Server ISO file. So go to Microsoft.com, download, or you can Google it, a free download, and you'll come to this place. And what you need to do is click on download the ISO. They're going to ask for your name, an address, and an email, and then you can download it. Okay, so when you get there, you'll be able to download the 64-bit edition. Okay, click the ISO file, the image. This is like a DVD image of the actual software. You'll get 180 days free trial. We get to do everything that we want on the server itself when we install it. Okay, so that's what you need. If you are in my class, I will have all the file that you need. You know, I'll share you. I downloaded already the Server 2022 and the VirtualBox and a whole bunch of other stuff that you may need when we are doing the labs, when we're doing these class activities. So I will share these with you with my Google Drive, so you may not have to download them. But if you're not in my class, then you'll have to go and download them from the virtualbox.org and from the windows.com. All right, so make sure you have at least the server ISO file located on your host machine before we do the installation. So let's assume that your VirtualBox is installed. You completed the installation, so you'll get something similar to this. I've already installed the server prior to this, but I'm going to take you step by step on how to do this. So, all right, the first thing we want to do is let's verify that we have a Windows 64-bit operating system, because to install the server 2022, it requires for you to have a 64-bit operating system on a 64-bit CPU. So let's hope you have that. So to verify, you right-click on the Windows Start menu, go to System, and I see that I have a 64-bit operating system with a 64-bit processor. So that's perfect. If you don't have this 64-bit, Windows Home Edition is a 32-bit, so that's not going to work. You need a 64-bit operating system running on a 64-bit processor. In addition to that, you need to make, if you're still having problems, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you need to enable the, what do you call it? Let's see. You need to enable the hardware virtualization in the BIOS to make, because sometimes it doesn't work if you don't have that in your BIOS enabled. It's called the hardware virtualization that has to be enabled in the BIOS. In most cases, it is enabled by default, so you don't have to. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to click on New, all right? And we are going to give it a name. So let's name it Server space 2022 dash, and we're going to name this the domain controller, okay? And go down here on version and choose Server 2022 64-bit. Now, if no 64-bit shows up, most likely that you do not have a 64-bit operating system, the host, because or that you need that hardware virtualization enabled in the BIOS. If you have an older version of VirtualBox, this may not have came up. So you could choose any Windows Server 2016 or even 2019, 64-bit, it would be acceptable. But you should have the Windows Server 22, 64-bit. All right, so once that's done, click on Next. All right, the minimum requirement to install Server 2022 is really 500 megs, half a gig. So we are going to choose, we're going to slide this over. We need to reserve 1 gig. 1 gig is plenty. I only have one processor. So I have 8 gigs of RAM on my host machine, and I'm only going to reserve 1 gig of RAM. Okay? So remember, you have a host machine, and the virtual box is called a hypervisor. And the hypervisor will allow you to create virtual machines, virtual computers. And the first virtual machine we're going to create, we're going to choose 1 gig of the 8 gigs of RAM. So every time I'm using this server, I'm going to have only using 1 gig of RAM. Don't choose a lot. If you go beyond this and you open up a lot of the memories, a lot of the software, it's going to eat up a lot of the resources and your system may crash. So if you're having problem booting up a virtual machine, check the memory. Make sure you have enough memory and you have not reserved too much memory. Because if there's too much memory, then the operating system won't work. All right, so we're going to reserve 1 gig. Like I said, the minimum requirement is only half a gig. Click on Next. All right, 50 gig hard drive, that's the minimum. We don't need more than that. All right, so that's all you need. Click on Next. And click on Finish. That's it. So now you have a virtual machine, a computer, with 1 gig of RAM and 50 gig of hard drive. That's it. Perfect. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to click on Settings. All right, so once you click on Settings, I want you to click on System. And we don't want to boot up from the floppy. We don't even have a floppy in this virtual machine, so uncheck that. All right, I want you to go down to Network while we're here and choose the NIC for an internal network. Change it from that. When you leave it on that, that means your computer is going to, your virtual machine is going to use your computer's NIC to go on the internet. So your computer NIC will be like the default gateway to go on the internet. When you choose internal network, you are not connected to the outside world. So imagine that you have a computer, the server is going to be connected to a switch, and we're going to be internally an internal network without connection to the internet. We'll talk about this later on. So when you choose internal network, you are connecting to an internal switch, virtual switch, of course, that you don't see. Of course, we're going to have also another client machine, and the client is going to be communicating with the server, and both of them will be connected to an internal network, which means they're both are going to be connected to a virtual switch. No connection to the outside world. No internet stuff. I don't want that for now. All right, so you choose that, and then go back to storage. And then we need to install the ISO file that you downloaded from Microsoft. So this is the DVD. So it's empty. So let's just one click on it, and then go over where the optical drive is. This is where the DVD, open the tray of the DVD. So click on that, and then choose a virtual optical disc. So I want, then when you click on that, click on the plus sign right here, because we want to add one. And then go and find your ISO file where you downloaded it. So I know I put it right here where it says Server2022 ISO. So you click on that. Imagine that that's your actual DVD. Click open. and then click choose. All right, so now you have your DVD in the tray ready to go, and we're ready to start. Click on the start. So click OK. So now you have the virtual machine, again, with 1 gig of RAM, 50 gig hard drive. The DVD is in the tray, and we're ready to boot up and start the installation. So make sure it's highlighted, and then click on start. If this comes up, just click on the X. We don't need this right here. All right, so when you click on start, this should show up. You can close this right here. All right, click on next, and then click on install. All right, we need to choose the standard evaluation desktop experience. Very important. Don't choose the first one. The first one is the core, which is only gives you the command line interface. You don't get the GUI version. So you choose the second one, the desktop experience. Click on next. Check that you accept the Microsoft license terms. Click on next. And then you choose custom install because we're not upgrading, all right? And then you accept it that you're going to install it on this 50 gig hard drive. Just click on next. All right, and then the installation starts up. So please do not touch anything. Pause your video and let this go on till the end, till you get where they ask you for a password. Don't click on anything. Just let it go, and we'll be back when they are asking us for a password. Okay, so we're going to choose a password that is common, so this way we don't forget it. So we're going to write I love Server 2022, capital I and capital S. So this way we use the complexity rule. Again, capital I, love Server 2022. Whoops, it's not even writing. Let me write that again. I love Server 2022. So let's take a look and make sure I wrote it correctly. Yeah, capital S and capital I. So let's repeat that again. I love Server 2022. And let's click on finish. And bingo, we're done. So now you know how to install a Server 2022 server in the virtual machine. Okay, so let's sign in. So let's go to input right here and keyboard Control-Alt-Delete. All right, let's log in with our password. I love Server 2022. We want to use the complexity rule, and it's always best to use a phrase for a password, so it makes it very difficult for anybody to guess what it is. All right. All right, so let's just let it complete the installation. All right. Okay, we'll wait till there's a server manager, an app that is going to upload immediately. And once that's loaded, then we need to take a snapshot. And I'll show you how to do that. So this way we'll take it once, and there's the server manager app. That's where we're going to be doing a lot of our work on the next class activities and so on. All right, so now we need to take a snapshot to show proof that you have installed the server correctly. So what you need to go to your host machine and you just do the snapping tool. The snapping tool, which is right here. It's best to really right click and pin it to your taskbar. Okay, so this way you can always, every time I ask you to take a snapshot, that's what you do. All right, so when this comes up, click on new. And this will be grayed out a little bit. Just take a screenshot of everything right here, right? Like that, highlight it and let go. And then go to your class activity document at the bottom and click on the bottom and just control and the letter V. Press the control key and the letter V and let go. And it's not showing. Okay, to allow the to paste that picture, make sure you go up here with editing and make sure you're allowed to edit your document, because I didn't have that editing. So once that's enabled, you should be able, after you capture the picture, just control and the letter V and it will be highlighted. You can, and that's it. And then the next picture, you put it right underneath. Okay, so we don't need that now. You can close that, the snap picture. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is we want to be able to, let's say you downloaded something off the internet and you want to, let me minimize the server manager app. Let's say you downloaded something from the internet on your host machine, on your computer right here. And you want to drag and drop it on the desktop of your Server 22. Or let's say you took a snapshot in the clipboard. You want to be able to go back and forth between the host, this is your machine, my Windows 11, and the Server 2022. So to do that, you need to install a new DVD in there, and it's called the Server Edition. So let's do that. So let's install that on the server to allow us to go back and forth. Click on Devices and click on Insert Guest Edition CD Image. You click on that, nothing happens, that's okay. But in here, if you go on the Server File Explorer and click on this PC, if you double click on the DVD, the VirtualBox Guest Edition is in there. And you want to install this app, the one that says VirtualBox Windows Edition. Double click on that. Click on Next. Next. Install. Okay, it's going to ask you to reboot. Okay, let it reboot. Click on Finish. All right, let's log in. And again, I love Server 2022. All right. Beautiful. Now we should be able to drag and drop from the host to here. All right, so while the server manager boots up, we need to enable the drag and drop and the clipboard. So you go back to Devices and then go to Shared Clipboard, change it from disabled to bidirectional. And you got to do the same thing for the drag and drop. So back to Devices, go to drag and drop and click on bidirectional. All right, we're done. So the last thing that I want you to do, let's verify that we do have a Windows Server 22 installed. Right click on the Start menu and go to System. And there you go. If you do scroll down a little bit, you got Windows Server 22 Standard Edition. Take a picture and put it, this is your second screenshot, and put it at the bottom of the lab. All right, once you're done with that, you can close this. You can close the Server Manager. And we need to shut down the server. This is what you need to do all the time. By the way, before we shut down the server, let me explain something to you. My server, my host, which is the Windows 11, is this is the Windows 11. This is the host machine. This is what allows us to get the hypervisor, which is the VirtualBox, is a hypervisor. Hypervisor is the layer that's going to be between the host and the virtual machines that are installed inside the VirtualBox. Now, there are other hypervisors. Windows Hyper-V, which comes part of Windows system, but we like to use VirtualBox instead. And there's also VMware, but we are using the VirtualBox hypervisor. All right, so, and that's what allows us to use our host machine for virtual. You can create as many virtual machines as you want in here. In here, right? So I already have 2 servers. You can have a Linux machine, any type of virtual machine that you want. All right, and you can run one at a time. It's virtual because it's software. That's why we call it. All right, so let's shut down the server, and this is what I want you to do every time you shut it down. Don't just close it and walk away, and don't click save. So you go to the start menu, click on the power button, choose shut down, and just choose unplanned. Continue. And that's it. Make sure you upload your files and make sure you upload your file with the 2 screenshots that I asked you. And I'll see you on the next class activity.